All right, welcome back everyone to the Qualified podcast. With me today is Russell Dunn with Maid in Texas. Russell, can you go ahead and introduce yourself and give us a little background?
Yeah, I'm Russell Dunn. I'm here in McKinney, Texas, which is about 30 miles north of Dallas. Uh, we moved here in 2017 from California. So we started in the maid service business back in 2006, long before Booking Quala even existed. Many other systems were not here at that time either. In fact, we started, I think, using an Excel spreadsheet for keeping track of jobs and that sort of thing. Um, Over time, we did a couple things. We switched from having employees in 2012. We switched to independent contractors, and also switched a couple of softwares we use for scheduling. So I'll leave. We've used probably five different ones over the years we've been in business. And in 2013, we switched to Booking Koala, and so we've been using it for about 3.5 years now.
Well,
So
it must have been 2018
Uh,
or later because we launched in 18.
yeah, sorry, 2020.
Okay.
2020, right about the time the pandemic hit, is when we switched in February 2020.
So
So,
since you started, how many softwares have you went from Excel spreadsheets to other softwares? How many have you gone through, would you say?
uh, I'd say at least five. Um, so I don't know if I could name some of them if you want, but some of them may not even exist anymore. Some are desktop models rather than online. Um, and we looked for, problem with desktop models, you have to do constant updates to your computer, and you're subject to, because you're housing all the data on your own local PC. So if you ever have a data crash or something, you kind of lose your data. So the online one seems to be a little bit more secure, for data security at least. So I think we used one or two others prior to Booking Koala that was online rather than desktop software. And so far, I mean, this works pretty well for us. One of the things we like about Booking Koala is that it's very flexible. It has a lot of settings that allow you to configure the system to work the way you run your business. So you're not trying to uh, convert your business to the way the software works. It's the other way around. Sometimes that's a double-edged sword because sometimes it has so many settings it can become a little challenging to figure out where you change something if you want to. But and I know Booking Koala has gone through a lot of software updates in that 3 year period. So some of the things they changed don't necessarily apply to us, and because of that, we don't always pay a lot of detailed attention to what the changes are, and we find out later that there's a small change that we didn't know affects us that does so. Um, but that's what we do. We're here in Texas. We've, like I said, we moved here from California in 2017. We started from ground zero here in Texas with no customers, no cleaners, no nothing. So we formed a new company, which is Made in Texas. It's a legal LLC in Texas. Built a website and started to get a few customers. So we tried intentionally to grow rather slow because we know that from experience, we found that the biggest challenges we have are with quality and being able to actually just provide service to customers. So having people who are dependable, reliable, and show up on time and do good work and all that is difficult. And in the beginning, it's even more difficult because you have people you don't even know who you
Right.
start working for you. Usually over time, you'll gain a core of cleaners that you can really actually depend on, that they're going to work and they're going to do good work. So you rely on them to for stability while you bring on new people. But when you're brand new, everybody's new. So
I know we
uh,
spoke before, and you told me that you started out in California with your business there, and you had employees. Uh, Talk a little bit more on that when you started over there.
yeah, well, actually, in 2006 when we started, my wife had been working at the Bank of America as a teller, and then she was recruited from there to go to work for Paychex, a payroll company. And I talked to her and I said, well, she's making about $15 an hour then, and she's always a real good employee. They really liked her and all that. But I said, you can get your 50-cent annual raise and stay here, I guess, as long as you like. Maybe you get promoted someday or whatever. But I said the best way to be in control of your own destiny is to own your own company, and that way, you can't be fired. You can give yourself a raise if you need to. What you make is going to be based on the effort you put into it. And so I had some friends who were in the house cleaning business there. They'd been in business since about the early 1990s. So I had a little bit of experience in them and how they ran their company. And I knew that one of the advantages of house cleaning was it's very easy to get into and it's inexpensive. So it's a very small investment. Um, Back then, our primary mode of advertising was Yellow Pages because they existed back then. And I was familiar with it because I used to work for the phone company and selling Yellow Page advertising. So we put some ads in the local phone books, and that's where we started getting our calls and customers from. In the beginning, my wife was doing all the cleaning herself, and then she got a friend of hers that worked with her, and then we started to bring on new cleaners. But right away, within about a year, we realized that we probably weren't doing everything quite the legal way. We weren't deducting payroll taxes and all that sort of stuff, and have all the appropriate insurances. So we went to a convention in Las Vegas, and we learned a lot about how to run the business correctly and legally and all that. So we came back and got an office. We ended up getting some company cars, a couple of those with the advertising wraps on it. Um, we got uniforms for the cleaners. We had got all the appropriate insurances, got set up to do all the payroll withholding and all of that, and started working and started adding people. So by 2012, we had 18 cleaners. We had actually 6 vehicles, and we worked in teams of 3, primarily because we found if you worked in teams of 2, you'd need 9 cars. And with teams of 3, you only needed 6. So from an economic standpoint, it made more sense. Um, so we did that. But what killed us in California, although we were growing rapidly, workers' comp in California was running at about 24% of payroll, and plus,
Quite a bit.
yeah, and it could go as high as 40. In addition to that, the insurance companies would do an annual audit of your payroll. So if you had underestimated what your payroll was going to be, and we usually did because the growth was outstripping what we thought it was going to. So we were paying $20,000 a year in addition to our normal premiums based on the audit. So it seemed like no matter how much we grew, most of the company was going to the insurance, most of our money was going to the insurance companies. So we chose to convert to independent contractors, and that was 2012.
And you tried the independent contractors in California before coming to Texas.
Yes, So we switched in 2012. We did a number of things. One, I had a company in San Diego. We had met several business owners through an association called ARCSI, which still exists today. It's part of ISSA. Uh, Went down and met a couple of the owners in San Diego and talked to her about that. And about a year later, she sold her company about the same time she converted to contractors. So we used her as a consultant to tell us how that worked out and what her process was for doing it. And we also hired a consultant from Georgia who I think Maids of America or something like that, but they help companies get started and they work with both contractors and employee model companies. So they had a lot of documentation and manuals and stuff like that. So we consulted with them in the process. We also joined an association there called CCDRA, and it's an association that's been there since 1992. Its purpose is to make sure companies who operate with independent contractors do it legally within the regulations of the IRS and the local employment agencies and whatnot. So we learned a lot about that. Um, One thing I do know is if you're ever going to change, it's important to do it the right way, because if you commingle um, contractors and employees and get in the midst of, and we are actually audited by the EDD, which is the unemployment division in California, as we arrived in Texas, and we passed the audit, by the way. So,
Good
but
news.
yeah, that was good, because that you always sweat when you get the government looking at your stuff.
Absolutely.
But I think one of the reasons we did was because as a member of that association, we learned all the correct things and the pitfalls and what you can do right and wrong. And I think there's a lot of confusion over many of those things. And from what I see, um, a lot of companies who operate today don't do it legally. They, even though they think they might be, but they just try to do what makes is good common sense, and that's not always compliant with the law.
Always got to make sure, especially with states. I know California is very heavy into the contractor model with making sure everybody is compliant, like you said.
Right,
There are things that are always changed and added, and you got to make sure you stay on top of those things. Otherwise, you can get
right,
screwed very quickly.
right, absolutely. And when we moved to Texas here and started, we actually very closely followed the California model for running a company using contractors, because California is probably the most restrictive in the country. So if you follow the California model, you're probably going to comply anywhere else you do business. So
And
that,
how would you say that transition was coming from California to Texas?
well, it was different, but I think part of the reason we did was because we find out with some of the changes we made with um, when we switched to contractors, it just made sense. We did some other changes too, so we switched to solo cleaners uh, because we no longer provided equipment and supplies and all of that. They didn't have uniforms. We didn't have the company cars. We weren't going through all of that. Everything that we did could be done online. We discontinued accepting cash or checks, so we converted to only credit cards. So you could actually run your company while you're sitting on the beach at Hawaii. As long as you have internet access, you could probably pretty much do it from anywhere. Um, you don't physically see the workers, you don't physically see the customers. So everything you do is, again, is online. We have a website, we have emails, we have text messages, we have our phone systems, voice over IP. You can connect that to any computer you're at. So there was nothing we did that required physical presence there. So that allowed us to move to Texas, start a new company here, and continue to run the California company from Texas. And we
And you
did.
still, to this day, have the California
We,
business, but you're not advertising. You're just keeping the old customers happy and just going with that.
right. The company in California is called Spotless Maid Service, so it's still there, and we're in Texas. We're made in Texas, but we took down the website in California. We don't do any advertising at all. Um, we have a second location in Booking Koala, which is the California piece, and some of our pricing is different in each one, and some of the ways we work. But we have uh, a small group of cleaners that's been with us since 2012 or before, and a group of customers that's been with us that long too. So we just let it do whatever it does, and um, we don't try to build it at all.
And how many cleaners do you have over there?
I think we have three, and we just let them keep working. So eventually, we'll probably just, I don't know, if it fades away to zero, that's fine, because we've all of our attention is focused on the Texas business. Although we have had some thoughts now that we've been through this process, we've thought about possibly even opening up a location in Florida, and that
Okay.
we could be in both places if we wanted to be, or either or.
Have you ever thought of selling the California location?
We thought about it, but the challenge there is it's very difficult to sell a company that's not in a growth mode. If you show a kind of a decline over a period of years, that's not a real attractive thing to sell. Again, we no longer even have the website. So it has a legal entity, but and a few customers, but that's about it. There's not a lot to sell really.
And
Thing
with Made in Texas, how many cleaners do you have there?
we currently have 13.
13.
Yeah. And
And what are you doing? What are you projected to do this year in revenue?
well, I would say in Texas we'll probably do I would guess about 300,000. So it's not real big because we've intentionally kept it at a level that's easy to operate and how do I say? I'd say it's stress free. We don't have a lot of quality issues because of some of the practices we have. Our pricing model, because we're very hands on with the customers and all of that. So we don't get a lot of online bookings, even though Booking Koala will do that. We really don't promote it. It's on our website. They can do it if they want to. But even if they do, we confirm and have an actual conversation with every customer who books so that we can know exactly what they want, explain to them our pricing and service model and how it all works, and make sure we feel that the best way to eliminate problems and quality complaints and other complaints is to be very transparent. So the more the customer knows about what they're paying for and what they're going to get, the less likely they're going to complain. As long as you deliver what you said you will. And that's,
Absolutely.
yeah. So we don't really, our primary advertising is some local networking. My wife's involved with a couple of the Chamber of Commerces, and she enjoys doing that part of the business. She goes to the morning chamber meetings. We know a lot of business people. We get a lot of business from realtors and property management companies, and just the members of the chamber hire us because they know us. So we do that, and we advertise on Yelp. And I like Yelp because you can fluctuate your budget, your advertising budget, as you feel you want to or need to. So you can control the flow of leads that way and the cost. And it's worked out pretty well for us. If you look at all the different advertising uh, things, Google local services and Google AdWords and Angie's List and Home Advisor and you name it. They all have their strong points and weak points. So none of them are perfect. They all cost money. So you have to find out what works best for you, and usually that's a little bit of trial and error. And over time, we found that um, I like Yelp because it allows me to manage the whole thing myself. I don't have to pay them to manage it for me, and so that's pretty much all we do. Outside of a couple other things we have some barter arrangements where we trade house cleaning services for other things. And, you know, it's a cashless system that way. Our pool cleaner cleans our pool. We clean his house so that, and no money changes hands. So we
It's a
do,
nice little way of getting business that way. And I mean,
yeah,
word of mouth, no advertising costs there. Your pool guy will refer you to somebody else and vice versa. You'll refer him to your whoever you know who has a pool.
yeah, exactly. And the chambers work that way too, because we're dealing with all these other businesses. We get a lot of calls almost on a daily basis from them referring people to us. And good example, we had one of the chamber members is a window cleaning company, and we had a call from someone who wanted uh, an office building in the local city we're in here. They wanted their windows cleaned. Well, we do a little bit of windows on a residential basis, but we don't do anything commercial. So we took the call, and then there's a window cleaner we know in the area from the chamber. So we called them, and I think we made a connection. So they're going to make some money. In the meantime, though, while we're talking to them, the window cleaner was asking about us, how we price for house cleaning and all that. Looked like we're going to clean their house. So, it just all works out that way.
Absolutely. And would you say that just with Yelp and over time you've built up this clientele with word of mouth and Yelp and maybe some other things? This has allowed you to just focus on that one marketing channel with Yelp and then just strictly go into word of mouth and not really spend a ton on marketing?
Yeah, pretty much. And the other part of that is, I think I mentioned to you last time, I just had a birthday, so I'm 74.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, so well, thank you. But my wife is somewhat younger than me, and we have a 14-year-old daughter, by the way. Uh, so uh, I am looking to kind of taper off my direct involvement in the business and not be as active as I was in years past. So that means my wife is kind of on her own to just do it, and I kind of let her. I mean, um, she's an A-type personality too, so she gets to make all her own decisions and do everything her own way. And I can explain to her why she's wrong, but
And how
that
well does that work when you tell her when she's wrong?
not very well at all. So, but that's okay as long as she just lets me sit back and watch the Dodger game or something. I'm fine.
There you go.
So it's a model that allows us to function the way we do. I can kind of taper off my involvement in the business. She can grow it as she finds is works best for her, doing the things that she thinks is and kind of working in the model that she likes. We do have a virtual assistant, and that's one of the advantages of all the online systems. Our virtual assistant lives in Illinois. I know some of the companies use VAs from Philippines and all over the world, but ours is in Illinois, so she is there to answer the phone and deal with text and emails and customer issues and cleaner issues and all that daily, which there always are some of those things. And again, that frees up my wife to do what she actually enjoys doing, which is the networking, and she's likes to be the social butterfly out there, meeting people and all that, and she gets to run the business in a way that's enjoyable to her, and I'm sure we could grow it much quicker. This is a very if the reason we chose this area of Texas is it's probably one of the most dynamic growth areas in North Texas. It's part of Dallas Fort Worth area, so it's a big metro area. Probably our market area is just Collin County, which is 30 miles north of Dallas. It's probably 1 million people, and but we could expand beyond that if we wanted to, but we just don't.
So you're safe to say happy with the size you guys are doing, with the revenue you're doing a year, because you don't need to take on extra headache with that growth and deal with, customer complaints and things like that. You found your sweet spot where you're happy to basically, as long as you stay here, it's sunshine and rainbows in a sense for you and your wife.
Yeah, kind of. And we've done a few things to make sure that the financial parts of it fit what we're doing as well. I don't know if you know Dave Ramsey. He's he believes in no debt and all that. So
Yes.
we have gone through that from 10, 15 years ago, and we had accumulated some debt as we started the first company, buying those company cars and all that. Well, once we got here within about a year, we were completely debt free. We were able to pay off all the no credit card debt, no car loans, nothing except the house. And it worked out good because um, the real estate market in Texas, you could buy an equivalent house for about half the price is what we paid in California. So when we sold the house in California and came and bought one in Texas, an equivalent house, we're able to put a substantial down payment, and now that's pretty much our only payment outside of taxes and utilities is that house mortgage. So that allows you to you're not desperate for every dollar of revenue. Sometimes that new companies, when they start, whether they sell a job today or tomorrow or do it or get paid for it or not, impacts on whether they can pay their own car payment next month, right? Well,
Absolutely.
we weren't in that position where every dollar was so critical. So it makes you less desperate, you know.
Definitely huge when you factor in where you live and where you want to start your business. We know a lot of people are trying this model where completely remote. They're, like you said, live in Illinois and have your service in Texas or Florida or New York.
Right.
Um, as long as it's smart and beneficial for you overall with your lifestyle and everything like that, and the way you want to have the business and run the business and find a great market for that, then that's all that really matters for long-term success as well, or mainly happiness. Because if you're not happy doing this business or any business, then it's gonna be draining, and more than likely it will be shutting its doors rather quickly.
Right. Yeah. As you know, there's a lot of people who enter into this industry, a lot of new people constantly, and there's also quite a few people who put their foot in and decide that's not for them, and they move on. So, um, but part of that's because it's a very easy industry to get into. Like I say, very small investment. You can get going for a couple $1,000s or less even, and start and you're in business, right?
Do you
Uh,
remember what your initial investment was when you first started?
well, it's hard to say because the way we transitioned from some of the things we did, so it wasn't like we did everything that we wanted to do from day one. I don't think we spent even $1,000 initially, but then we spent more over time. And like I say, in California, what was killing us the most was some of the insurance requirements. So a lot of money
Insurance
going there.
and
And
those and the taxes too on top of it.
yeah, it seemed like no matter how fast we grew, and we were growing pretty rapidly, um, but no matter how fast we grew, it seems like it was always we were just producing money to pay the insurance companies.
Everybody's has their hand out when you're doing well and growing quickly. Then they start sticking their hand out and being like, "We need our cut."
Yeah, they do, and that's fine. I mean, everybody's got to make their money somehow too. But with this model too, and I think with contractors, in our model, we have very low overhead. We work from our home office. Um, because we work from our home office, we're using things like utilities and that sort of thing is being partially written off as business expense too. Things we would probably be spending anyway just to live here. But we're able to pay more to the cleaners, and you have to because cleaners are bearing the cost of transportation and equipment and supplies and all of that themselves.
Right.
So we're able to pay a rate that will give the cleaners more money in their pocket than you could as employees, at least from our experience.
And talk to me a little bit about your pricing for your customers.
Yeah, we price everything we do is hourly, so we don't do any flat rate pricing, and that's one of the reasons why we don't get quality issues too. The only thing a customer can really complain about is that we charge them for more time they got. Um, we have a minimum of 3 hours. Our price is $48 an hour, and that's true. We don't really discount for recurring customers because we found over time that we didn't book any more or less by offering that discount for recurring service. We thought if they're not going to book more for giving it, then why do I give it to them? What's the
Right.
unless I just like giving money away just because. So it's $48 an hour. For an occupied home, we'll do whether it's occupied or vacant. It's still $48 an hour. It's still for one cleaner, um, and if it's a vacant house, we have a minimum of 4 hours because it just takes longer to do a vacant home. And in some houses are more time because they're bigger, dirtier, or whatever. But the main thing there is just to be transparent with the customer and make them understand what you're paying for is time. You're not paying for a specific amount of cleaning. And when they say, "Well, what does your cleaning include?" I'll say it depends on what you want it to include because you're paying for time. So if you want us to do some laundry or wash some dishes or hand wash the baseboards or ceiling fans or clean your refrigerator inside and out, whatever you want to do, as long as it's internal cleaning, we'll do it. You're just going to pay for time.
So instead, like most businesses that do flat rate have checklists that they provide to customers, right? So they'll, like you said, the customer's going to ask what does it entail, and well, those businesses will show on the checklist this is what will get done. But
Right.
you on the complete opposite side, you tell the customer, hey, it's hourly for 3 hours minimum. So if they book you for 3 or 4 hours, you're kind of giving us the checklist of what you want done in that time.
Exactly. We'll tell the cleaner, I say, you tell me what you want us to do, and we'll build the checklist from your brain, not ours. So we're not going to tell you what you get. You're going to tell us what we're going to give you. And then we just make sure we communicate that to the cleaner.
And
And
if that checklist is a little bit bigger or longer than the time frame, do you automatically stop at the given time, or do you tell the customer, well, it's going to take longer, or during the job, hey, we're not finished yet with what you want, we can keep going, or we could stop?
yeah, all of the above. I'd say as they're telling us what they want done, as they're describing it, we may initially say, well, you know what, based on what you're telling me, 3 hours is not going to be enough. It's going to take longer. Uh, there's three factors that determine how long a house takes to clean. It's the size of the home, the condition of it, how dirty is it, and how clean do you want it to be. So those three things are gonna impact how long it takes. And so we try to, but we can guide them with that. And again, that's one of the reasons why we don't really encourage a lot of online bookings. Other companies do. We just don't. I mean, we don't care if they book it, but we always call to confirm and ask them questions. We find out, is the date and time that you wanted, is that important to you? Are you okay moving it later in the day or to a different day? Um, uh, is the time of arrival important or not? And we find out what they want done. Because sometimes you get a person with a 4,000 square foot home, they'll book online and they'll book it for 3 hours. And so we call them up and say, well, we got your booking. We call to confirm we got it, confirm the time and date. And then we'll say, uh, even if they don't give us square footage, you can look it up online, Zillow or realestate.com or whatever. So you can find the square footage of the home. And then you say, well, you got a 4,000 square foot home. If you want the whole house to be cleaned, 3 hours is just not enough. So I'll tell them 3 hours will usually accommodate a maintenance clean for about a 1,500 square foot home. That's the reality. If you want a
And
more,
if they ask for another cleaner, you don't send one, or
no, well, the only time we do, because we work with solo cleaners, the only time we will have more than one cleaner if the job is too big for one cleaner to do in the time that's available. Usually, unless it's going to be more than 6 to 8 man hours of work, then one cleaner can do it. So, and we'll tell them if you want two cleaners, first of all, we're not going to send two cleaners for 1 hour.
right.
Makes no sense. Um, but if you want two cleaners and there's enough work there to justify that, it's still going to cost you it because our rate is per man hour, so it's going to cost you the same amount of money. You're just going to get it done in half the time.
So if somebody had 6 hours booked, they could choose one person for six or add that extra person to cut it to the three?
Yeah, so it'd be 3 hours of actual time the job would take to get done, but they pay for 6 man hours because there'd be two people.
And that you have seen no real issue with, people aren't complaining and or coming back and saying, things are missed.
No, if they do, I'll say, because if the cleaner is there and if we get toward the end of the job or even in the middle of it or at some point during the course of doing the work, we realize that there's just not going to be enough time to complete everything the customer's wanting done, then we'll engage with the customer and we'll say, um, if you want this done, then the 4 hours you book for or three or whatever it might be is not going to be enough time. So we think it's going to take another hour or maybe two to complete all those things. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with the extra cost of that? And if not, we'll say if but it's their prerogative. They say no, I want to stick with the original amount of book time. We'll say glad we're happy to give that to you. We're just telling you now that it's not likely we're going to get all that done. So we'll do as much as we can that's reasonable for the one person that's there in the time you book for.
And when it comes to competition in your area, because it seems like Texas is one of the states that is very hot with cleaning services starting and, being in business, how have you handled the competition in the sense of staying competitive yourself and keeping your cleaners happy and keeping your customers happy.
I think it's important that you kind of understand what the market is as far as pricing, what the customers are hearing and paying and used to paying, so that you want to know if you're lower, higher, or in the middle of all of that. And the same thing with cleaners pay. You got to make sure that you're competitive. You're offering them the kind of work environment they're looking for. And part of that is not just the money in their pocket. I think we meet every cleaner that starts with us in person. In addition to an initial phone interview, we arrange to meet them and sit down and we'll talk to them for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour, whatever it takes. So we each get to know each other a little bit better. Um, and I think part of what makes them happy with where they're working is that they feel comfortable working with us. So if they know we're going to treat them fairly, we're not there. Some employees just think that you're there to cheat them or to make it. You're going to get rich off the sweat of their brow, right? Which I don't hide from the fact that, of course, that's how we make money. But you have to treat everybody with respect, and I think that's part of it. So it's a difficult business. House cleaning is labor. It's manual labor. It's hard work. And you're going to have challenges and difficulties, customers that are hard to work with, um, yeah, dogs that want to bite you, uh, a door that's locked and there's no key hidden where it's supposed to be after you've just driven 30 minutes to get there. It's going to be 110 degrees and the air conditioning won't work. So all these challenges, the vacuum cleaner breaks in the middle of the job. So it can be a frustrating, difficult business. And we just tell them, um, we understand all that. So if you have a bad day, don't take it out on us. And if we have a bad day, we won't take it out on you because, I'm here to make your life easier, not harder. In the process, we both make money. So, um, I think that's part of it. The pay has to be good and we're very transparent with what they make, how it's calculated. We pay weekly. Um, We do it using Zelle almost exclusively. We have a couple other ways that we can use, but so when we send them their money, they get it within minutes. They don't have to wait to get a check or something. And we send a backup with a breakdown of every job they did and how much they made. And if they ever think we calculated it wrong, just say so. And we'll double check it. If we ever make a mistake, we'll correct it. So, I
And
mean,
how do you break down, like, how is their payment done then per
well,
job?
yeah, we do pay by the hour as well. And most companies in the who use independent contractors because of the legalities of it tend to pay by a percentage. And we've done that in the past, but we found the percentage was sometimes too difficult, um, even though it's simple math. So, but if they're get paid an hourly rate, that's very understandable. So they know exactly what they're going to get paid. I saw a post on the Booking Koala Facebook group just the other day, and the question was if you do a job and you pay your cleaners 60% as a percentage, but you send two cleaners and your pay is 60%, how do you do that? Not
How many comments were on there?
quite a few, but my comment I get a little sarcastic sometimes because I think people if you're gonna be in business you got to be a little bit intelligent, right?
Right.
At least a little bit. So I said I just pay them each 60%. You'll be fine.
And I'm sure the response was either questioning or maybe a little sarcastic back.
A little bit. Yeah, you get a lot of questions like they'll say, "Well, I'm." Someone called me and they got a 4,000 square foot house they need cleaned and it's a vacant home. What would you charge? Right? My answer is always $1 million. I said, if you don't know how to price your business, I mean, why are you in business? I mean, you either charge by square foot, by number of rooms, by hour, by time, or by something, right? You have to have
Right.
something method used. How do you charge any other house you do? Use the same method you do for those other houses. I don't understand the question.
There are very common questions that seem to pop up in the group, and I feel like there are ways to go about those questions. and there are wrong ways to go about them. The wrong ways are just the very broad ones that you kind of explain where you get a little sarcastic with them
Yeah.
just to get their mind going a little bit. Um, you could definitely word it better and get more of better
Uh,
response from the group.
I think if they would put a little bit more time into crafting the question, they would get a little bit more effort into the answers they get. But when they ask such a generic question, you're going, "What kind of question was that?" You know,
It's kind of like they want the easy way out and they want, the immediate answer, but in this line of work and in this business, it's never going to be cut and dry because every business owner wants to run their business different. Every area that you're in, even if you're in Texas, Texas is so massive that one area of Texas can be completely different from another area. So it takes research, time,
oh yeah,
and and if you want to be a business owner, you got to put in that time and effort. You can't just go to the group and start
right,
spitballing questions for everybody to answer for you to give you the right answer because you're going
yeah,
to get 10 different answers from 10 different people.
exactly. And as far as competitors go, most of the ones in my local market, I know them. I mean, I talk to them either online or in person sometimes, and I have no secrets. If they want to ask me a question, I'll tell them. I said, whatever we do is on our website anyway. I mean, I got nothing to hide about our pricing and what we do or how we pay or what they get for the money or none of that. If you take 10 minutes and look at our website, you have all those answers anyway. But if you want to ask me, I'll tell you. I don't care. It's not a secret.
And
And
even if they didn't go to the website, what they could do is they could book you. They could book you as a customer
they can do that. Yeah,
and ask you questions as a customer, find out the answers there, get the cleaner in, see what the cleaner does, and within
right,
a day they have all the answers they need.
right. I've had, I'm sure we all had that. I've had people that you realize through some of the questions they asked, it's actually a competitor calling and getting a quote, and you can tell. And no, I don't care. I will tell them whatever they want to know because there's nothing it's not rocket science to begin with, and it's not, there's nothing secret about what we do. So I'll tell them, but most of them are quite the same way. Have a good relationship with all the other companies I know in this area. We talk to each other, and we're quite friendly. We actually send business to each other. So if
And that's huge that you do that because if you're ever overbooked and don't have a cleaner, instead of them automatically going to somebody else because they're going to, if you turn them away, why not have that relationship with another cleaning
right,
service and send it their way and they'll do it back for you when they're busy.
right, and I've always had a philosophy that you don't badmouth the competition because you're really putting a bad mark on the industry itself. So if someone wants to use another company, that's fine. I mean, we're not the perfect fit for everybody.
And that's huge that I believe everybody who either is already in this business or is watching and thinking about getting into this is that not every customer is your customer and you don't want them to be.
No, I mean, some people will say, I really need you to give me a flat price. I want to know exactly what it's going to cost to do the job. And I'll say, I'm sorry, we only work by the hour. I can't do that. And the same with, but I say there are other companies who will be glad to do that for you. So it's just not us. Uh, we have people that say, I'm not comfortable giving you a credit card. Can I pay you with a check when the job's done? And I'll say, I'm sorry, but no, we only take credit cards. Uh, and I can justify that a little bit. I say, 10 years ago, I spent half my time chasing my money, with bounced checks and people who were going to pay when it's job's done. And when the job's done, there's nobody there.
Right. And
Or
it
we
makes it, like you
call
said, so much easier.
yeah. And especially when we went to contractors, because the cleaners no longer came into an office each day. So if they're collecting checks and cash, how do you get that from them, their hand to yours? Uh, and we tried for a while, and it was a nightmare.
You'll
Uh,
have to end up driving to 13 different homes of your providers to pick up the checks and cash and
yeah,
then go to the bank and
Yeah.
deposit it
And
and wait several
yeah,
days.
they weren't always within a few blocks. They were miles away. And we had a while where a couple of cleaners that had a real challenge with uh, getting it. I would go give them self-addressed stamped envelopes and say, just put the money in this and stick it in a mailbox. They couldn't find it within their schedule to do that. I said, well, you want us to pay you one time, right? And how I pay you is with the money the customers hand you. It goes into my bank account, and then I take that money and pay you. So if you never give me the money, how am I supposed to pay you?
Did you ever have an instance where a provider tried to just keep their cut and
Not
send you the
direct,
rest?
not directly, but when they kept cash or collected cash, sometimes they'd say, "Can I need to buy gas. Can I take some of the cash I have, and I'll give you the receipt and fill my car with gas?" And we'd usually say, oh, "Okay, that's fine." But it just adds an accounting, process. You got to keep track of that and deduct it from their pay and show that on any pay record. So it just was much cleaner when we didn't do that. Yeah.
Now with all the online everything, with Booking Koala allowing you to collect the payments, pay out the providers, keep your accounting connected through QuickBooks, it's so much better to have it all in one spot versus, like you said, cash and check one place, have to collect the receipts and scan them, upload them online, and so if you happen to lose it, you have a backup for the tax purposes,
Right.
and you're not, Uncle Sam's going to come asking at the end of the year, and if you don't have it, then you're going to shoot yourself in the foot and lose more money.
Right. When we went through our audit, which was our California business in the EDD, which is the unemployment office there, they asked us for our bank records. We had to show them every contractor has an independent contractor agreement that they sign, W-9 forms, and all those things. We had to provide all those copies of everything to the auditor. And one of the requirements in California, which is the DRA model, is that you have to put all customer payments into a trust account. So all the money goes into one account, which is a separate account from your main business checking account. So it goes into a trust account. The only thing that's paid from there is the cleaners. So they get their money first. And then after you paid the cleaners, then you can take your cut and transfer it to the other account. And they can clearly, the auditor can look at that, and it's very obvious exactly what was done and where the money went, where it came from, and everything matches. And I think that's part of why we passed the audit.
That's excellent. If you go through an audit and you're missing paperwork, you're more than likely going to fail it, and then more headaches on yourself and more fines and fees you have to pay back to the government because of those reasons.
Right. And a lot of companies that I see, they're not following. I don't know if they're following all the rules. Some of them are not following any about the legal requirements by the IRS. And, how you define a independent contractor versus a W-2 employee. I mean, you got contractors wearing uniforms. You got contractors, and they go in the office and the company's providing their equipment and supplies and all of that. They go in for a training session, which you can't do as contractors. So every way they could possibly fail an audit, they do. And then they're surprised when they fail the audit, and it happens every day.
I mean, you can send them a shirt that says Made in Texas, and you can say, well, this is for you. You could wear it whenever. You could wear it to the jobs if you would like, but it's not mandatory. As
No,
long as you have that, you
not
can.
really. Not really. You could do that. The problem is you're giving the perception to the customer that that person is your employee, and they're not. So if they're wearing a Made in Texas shirt while they're cleaning, company looks at it and says, "Oh, that's their employee, right?" So that's why you can't even. There's a lot of questions online about insurance, liability insurance. Um, can you buy insurance as a company that will cover the contractor if they break something? We could go into an hour-long debate over that. Can you require the contractor to have their own insurance? We can debate that too. The reality is, the answer is no, you can't. Most companies do.
Well, you're supposed to have general liability for yourself, but
No,
that just covers
but
your
that's,
business.
but that's not true either. There is no law that you have to have insurance. You have insurance because you want to protect yourself, right? But there's no legal reason to have it. In fact, in California, if you're operating under the DRA model, which is a domestic referral agency, they view you as an employment agency. You're not a cleaning service. You're an employment agency. Um, you can't, on your website, you can't even say our cleaners are insured and bonded or licensed or any of that. You can't even reference that because they're not. And
That's
you can't
interesting
require them
because
to.
it seems like there's a lot of information online that each state by state is different, and each state will tell you one thing versus another, and that's where I feel
Yeah,
like the biggest confusion comes into the group when people are asking these questions and comments.
right. I mean, there are states who require workers' comp. There are states that don't. California, I mean, Texas does not. California is one of them, it does require it, and it's one of the most expensive in the country to have employees and cover workers' comp. Like I say, upwards of 40% of payroll in some cases. And if you ever get a claim, it goes up. So it's a problem. But if you require them to have, and there was a post about this today on the group, if you require the cleaners to have liability insurance, do you also tell them what the limits of liability have to be? Is it $1 million? Is it $20 million? What is it? Do you tell them how big of a deductible they can have? $500, $1,000? And what if they change any of those after they start working with you? What do you do about that? What if they quit paying the premium and their insurance lapses? What do you do about that?
Always a different answer from everybody in the group
Oh
because
yeah.
everybody's in a different state, in
Mm-hmm.
different cities,
Yeah.
and
Mostly
doing different and running their businesses differently.
right. Are you
So
required to
there's
have a city business license? You know, in California, supposedly you are, and it doesn't make sense because if when I was in, well, we are still in California. Our market area there covered about 20 different cities, and so does anyone have 20 different city business licenses? I'd say no, they don't. Even now, where the state requires that you have one, what you do is you get one for one of the cities of the 20, and you've met the requirement. Even though you clean houses in all the other 19 and you don't have a license for that. If your cleaners have to have a license, a city business license, and they sometimes go to different cities, do they have to have one for each city? Theoretically, yes. Do they ever? No, they don't.
that's the biggest thing out of this discussion here is do your research and make sure you know what you need and what you don't need because there are going to be things that you will end up getting that you're potentially going to waste money on and you won't need it, and there are
Mm-hmm.
things that you're not going to get that you do need, and that will end up costing you money at the end when end of the year and tax season comes and you need to find out what you owe or what you keep.
Hey, you'll see if you look at the companies and their websites and all that, you'll see a lot of them say our cleaners are licensed, insured, and bonded, right? So I'll ask sometimes the owner, I'll say, okay, what bond do they have? And they'll look at me and they'll go, well, they're bonded. I'd say, well, what kind of bond? They don't know. The reality is, in that tenants, they're talking about a theft bond, which is also referred to as an honesty bond. So if something comes up stolen, you can go to the bonding company and they will cover it usually for up to $25,000. Sounds good, right? The problem is the bonding company will not pay unless you have proof and conviction. So you can't just say, well, my diamond ring was on the dresser this morning and the only people in the house was the cleaner, and now the ring's gone. Therefore, they had to steal it. So I want your bond to pay for that ring. It's a $5,000 ring. Bonding company said, nope, we ain't paying. How do you know they stole it?
Unless there's a camera and it was clear, and then you bring it to a police report and get a police report and
Yeah. So unless you have video evidence, which could happen, it has happened, it's pretty hard. Just because you say it's gone doesn't mean it's stolen.
right.
Most
So
of them,
what are some of the challenges that you have faced as a business owner since you first started?
oh, well, I would always say the biggest challenge in the business is getting reliable, dependable workers. That's in the numbers that you need. Um, and it becomes even harder in the independent contractor model because you have little to no control over the workers. Um, and it's such an easy entry to the workers as far as work too. If they decide not to work for you today, they can have a job tomorrow with some other company because most companies are always struggling to get cleaners. So uh, that's the biggest challenge. And getting people who you can depend on to actually show up because people have a tendency to, they want to be sick. They don't want to be sick, but they want to say they're sick. Their car breaks, right? Their child's sick. They have a death in the family. Um, I mean, there's
Any of the excuses.
101 excuses on why I can't work today. And usually they only think of these things at 7:30 in the morning when they've got an 8 o'clock job, right? Or what's worse is when they just decide not to go to the job and you never hear from them again. And that's not unheard of. No show, no calls. I think every company has experienced that. Cleaners just don't show up.
And in the last, I guess, year, couple of years, how often have you seen that with your business?
Oh, I'd say I've never seen a year where I don't see it happen. I mean,
Okay.
it doesn't happen
Would you
every
say
day.
weekly, monthly?
I would say I don't think that you go a month without
At
that,
least one?
at least one. Yeah. And the hard part is a lot of when the customers hire you as a company, they do so. There's a lot of independents. We used to call them trunk slammers. Anybody with a bottle of spray cleaner and a couple of rags and a vacuum, they're a maid service, right? Um, and sometimes they're cheaper than you can get with a company because they don't have any overhead or nothing. They'll just whatever they put in their pocket, they'll clean the house for. So there's too many of those out there. Um, but companies hire you because they think that because they're hiring an actual company, they can pretty much count on you're going to get the house clean. And so when the cleaner doesn't show up, then the phone's ringing and the customer says, well, nobody showed up. What are you going to do? And our job is to find a solution, find a substitute, maybe a reschedule, but somehow resolve that problem. And that's why they do business with a company rather than an individual.
Something to always fall back on when
Yeah,
something happens with that individual. Do you have any horror stories with a cleaner being in the house and something happening there?
yeah, I guess I could tell one. We it's in California, by the way. We always do a background check on every cleaner. We always interview them in person. We go through every effort to make sure they're people of good moral turpitude and character and all that. And but we did have a case where the applicant came in and outside of our normal practice, the applicant brought a background check. They had recently had a background check applying for work at Walmart. Background check looked perfect. No criminal, nothing, right? So we registered them and gave them a job. Well, uh, we had a call from the customer and they had some credit cards stolen. and they were able to trace it because the cards were used uh, at certain locations, and we're able to find out it was actually the lady who worked with us. Well, so, and by the way, I wasn't the one who interviewed this person, just so you know, because normally I wouldn't accept that third party background check, even though it was current. We do our own. But so I went ahead and did another background check online, and she had a record about this long. So
Oh dear.
she had doctored up that background check. It wasn't real. So she had quite a history of theft.
So safe to say, whoever hired or interviewed at that time kind of had an awakening moment where
Right.
no matter what they give you, even if it was run the previous day,
No.
always rerun it and check yourself.
Yeah, and we do, and we've never done that again. I think the lessons learned. We had a lady who had moved from Oregon to California, and she interviewed. We always talk about, we say we're going to run a background check. They have to fill out an authorization form for that and sign it before we submit the background check to the company who does it. But we talk about that during the interview. And this lady said, "No, I'm clean. I never did anything. I'm never had any problem with the law." So we ran the background check, and it came back a couple days. And she had just been released from a prison in Oregon. And for 8 years, she'd been in prison for attempted murder. So I got that back, and I called her and I said, "Well, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to work with you." I said, "We got your background check, and we now know, your history is not what we're looking for in this industry." And she goes, "Well, okay." She said, "I understand." She says, I didn't think he'd actually run the background check. Because some companies say they will, but don't.
Right.
We do.
They take the word of the person. If they have
Yeah.
a killer interview and the person does
Yeah.
great,
They
they
say, "Well,
they're-
she
they skip
seemed
it.
like a nice person, right?" Yeah.
They skip. They're like, I'll save the 35 or $50, whatever it is, for the screening, and I'll go with my gut because they're
Right.
okay.
Or it's quicker. You don't have to wait for it to come back. You just give them a job tomorrow, right? So we don't do that anymore. We make sure that we do the background check. Uh, we attempt to call some references too. Sometimes you don't reach anybody, you get voicemail, they don't call you back, but we at least make that effort. Um, and we make sure the background check is clear. And I tell them, I don't care if you have a speeding ticket, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for theft, drugs, that sort of thing, or serious felonies. If you kill somebody, that probably rules you out.
I think so.
You know, if you drove the car drunk through the customer's house, you know, or
Right.
that probably rules you out too. So,
Talk a little bit about your success with Yelp and how you manage that yourself.
well, it's a learning process like everything else is. So with Yelp, and I've done Google AdWords and a few other things too. I've been on Angie's List, and over the years, some of them have merged and combined and gone through some ownership changes and all that. But with Yelp, what we use now, you create your business profile, and if you do a good job of that, you put some pictures on there, you put your company logo, your website, and all of that. Talk about your services, what you do, what you don't do, how you charge, as much as you can do in a Yelp profile, and then you set a daily budget, how much you want to spend for the leads. I think the important thing on any pay for click or pay for lead is to be responsive. So if you get leads and take 3 days to respond to them, you're wasting your money. So you have to be prepared to follow up on the leads quickly. Um, and the only challenge I've ever had with Yelp is that generally you can only communicate through the Yelp uh, platform, so you don't get a phone number for the customer or an email. So, but we get a significant amount of leads from them. Usually they're good, solid leads. Um, you don't book them all because you can't talk to them all. But we do book leads from there, and we only spend about 500 a month for Yelp, but we get leads pretty much every day. 7 days.
And how many reviews do you have on your Yelp page?
I'd have to look back because I think we're working on some of that now. We had a problem with our Google profile at one point where it went down, and when they got it back up, all the reviews we had accumulated over the year disappeared. And then we had to go out and say, okay, we need to get some reviews. So we have maybe 20, 25 only. So we don't have a lot. Um, the review sites actually, if you, especially Google, if you are outwardly soliciting reviews, that can cause them to actually blacklist you on Google and the other platforms too. So you have to be careful in how you're doing that. You can't give incentives for a customer. You can't say, look, you give you a 5-star review, a good one, and I'll give you a 20% discount on your next cleaning. You might do that, but you're not supposed to.
Right.
So we try to keep it on the up and up and the clean. Of course, we get the reviews from customers directly through the system in Google, in Booking Koala, and we look at those, but we don't have the automated. If you get a 5-star review, we'll send out a follow up. We do that manually, um, and we'll give them the link to Yelp and Google and say, we're a small business. We appreciate the review. If you're happy with the service, and a good way to say it is, if you're not happy with the service, tell us. If you're happy with the service, tell everybody else, right? Uh, but but we need to do some more work on that. But the more reviews, good ones you get, it's going to impact the leads you get as well. So that's very important for your online presence.
Did you start advertising with Yelp before you had any reviews? Or did you wait till you got several reviews first before you started?
No, we did it at least in Texas. So we created a profile as soon as we opened the business here in Texas on Yelp. So at least we had the profile there, and we started to get a few reviews. But we were getting leads right away. So
But this was before you started running any paid ads with them.
yeah, but I think I started pretty quickly, but with a pretty low budget, like $10 a day or something like that. So because I don't know, I think Yelp. Um, you're obviously going to get more leads if you pay than if you don't. Although you can have a free profile on Yelp, and you can have a free profile on Google. You can have your Google business profile. You can just create one, and you don't have to advertise with them. It's there.
I
Uh,
think it's very, very smart and wise for any business to have as many of these free profiles with your business name and logo on there so that
mhm.
whenever a customer Googles your name, you have all these pages coming up and showing that you're everywhere, not just having one or two.
Right. I occasionally when we get calls from California because we don't have our website, we're not even advertising at all. We get a call from some unknown potential customer, and I'll think, I wonder where they found us even. Usually it's from Yelp because we still do have a profile on Yelp and on Google. So we're still, you can find us online if you look hard enough. Even in
And but one again, you don't push anybody to leave the reviews for California. Just
no,
whatever happens, happens
yeah,
there.
yeah. And again, these customers that we have, um, most of them have been with us for at least 6, 7 years or more. So they're obviously happy with us, or they wouldn't be still with us, I guess.
Absolutely. They don't want to look for somebody new when they've been with you for this long and super happy with the results.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of California because we started way back then, and it came at a time when we used to go out and do on-site um, estimates. So we do a walk through the house and give a flat price and all that. Um, so either my wife and I or both of us have been out, and we actually have met many of these customers in person 10, 12 years ago, and I still know them. I mean, we knew people that when we started cleaning them, their kids were this big, you know, and 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 then we're cleaning their kids' houses once they're old and married and all that. So
They start as a customer and they become close like friends and family.
yeah, yeah, we and we know them by name. The phone rings, I see the name, I can picture them in my mind. I know who they are. They know me. I mean, when we talk to each other, we talk like we're old friends. You know, we just known each other for years.
And that's huge. That makes it that much better to be running a business like this because you get all these great relationships and it helps with the business because now they're going to start referring you to their friends and their friends' families and you
Yeah,
just start growing like that. And
right. Not only
having
that,
this business model where it's recurring and you don't have to keep looking for new customers is massive.
right. The longer you've been in business, I mean, we get calls all the time. Customers say, "Well, you cleaned my house 4 years ago." At one time, it was a vacant home. We've bought another house. We need it cleaned. So can you clean? You know, we get just because we did business 4 years ago. That's why they called us today. And that,
Amazing.
yeah.
So
So
how do you, with that, how do you foster, a positive company culture with your business when it comes to your cleaners as well as that translating into your customers?
yeah,
Or yeah,
yeah. It's a lot harder with the contractors. When we had employees, the cleaners all came into the office every morning. They came back at the end of the day and brought back their cars, all their equipment and supplies. So you had a one-on-one or person-to-person relationship with these people on a daily basis. You got to know them better than you do now because we never see I have cleaners that work for us here in Texas. I met them at the initial interview. They've worked for us for 4 years, and I haven't seen them since. We talked to them on the phone or something, but I've never seen. Some I can't remember what they look like. It's been years. So it's hard to develop a culture in that environment. Um, Same thing with our virtual assistant. Like I say, she lives in Illinois. We talk to her every day, but I've never met her. And she's been with us for a couple of years at least. So, uh, but I think you have to develop um, just that ability to get to know people personally without seeing them in person. So, but I think you build a relationship. I think we know again we try to treat everybody with respect, and I think that's what it boils down to. When we talk with our VA and we're talking about problems with a customer or cleaner, um, we have to understand. We have to feel comfortable that what we say is confidential. Because sometimes we may say something that could be perceived as negative, or may be negative, but you have to know that you can have that conversation with somebody and they're not going to misuse that information. It's a business, you got to do those things. But I think they get to know you by how you deal with other people, and so they feel comfortable dealing with you because they know that you treat other people the right way. Um, and I think we try to do that with the cleaners from day one to let them know that for us to work together, we have to trust each other and be comfortable working with each other. And if we can't, then it's never going to work.
right.
So, I mean, they have challenges in life. We have times when, I mean, we try not to be a bank. So when people say, can you give me an advance of $500 or something? Um, I'd like to say no, but if it's a good solid reason, many times we have said yes against our better judgment sometimes. But as they say, when you loan money to friends, you lose your money and your friend,
Right.
you know. So we try to be careful doing that. But I think, and even if we say no, there's a way of saying no that's compassionate. They have to know that you understand their problem and you care about their problem, but you can't be, funding the world. So I think people just it's a culture where, and I think that if you treat the cleaner right with respect, they're going to treat the customer that way too. They understand that's what your philosophy is.
It starts with you as the business owner
Yep.
honing that in and making sure that day in and day out, you respect everybody like you respect the customer on the phone because they're the one paying for the service. You
Right.
have to respect the cleaner because they are the one, like you said, this is a very hard business. It is
Right.
very tiring. It's hands-on. You have to respect them
Right.
each and every single day, no matter if it's a phone call, a text message, or an email, even if they, give you a reason why they're not coming in. Could
Right.
be valid, could not be. But again, you got to respect them. And when you give the respect, you're going to get the respect back. And that's how your business will
Right.
grow because you're going to get that respect.
Yeah. And we tell the customers all the time that we go through great aims to make sure that the cleaners that we're going to send into their homes, they can be comfortable with. They're going to respect them, their home, their property, and all of that. And part of that is I always tell them that I'm not going to send a cleaner into your home that I would not be comfortable having come into my home when I'm not home. So if I don't think I could trust them in my home, why would I send them to somebody else's home?
100%.
Yeah. And if you really believe that, then I think I'd rather say, we're not a good fit for each other and let the cleaner know you need to go your way, we'll go our way. And we wish you the best and all that. But otherwise, if you don't feel that comfort level, you'll feel, uh, you'll be concerned about that every day. That something,
As hard as it is to get these new cleaners and hiring in general is the two biggest parts of this business are hiring great people and marketing and finding your customers.
yeah,
If you are struggling with finding these cleaners and you think, okay, maybe this one or two times I'm going to hire somebody, even though I don't have
right.
100%
Mm-hmm.
in mind that they're going to be great, maybe there's a little bit of a percentage in my mind where there might be an issue or there might not. Once you start thinking that way, you open up a whole new can of worms and it might go down badly and quickly at that.
Yeah, and in the world, it's never perfect. So you can have a customer who says, I mean, because we charge for time, we've had a customer say, well, you charged me for 3 hours, but the cleaner clock got here at 9:30 and left at 12. That's like 2.5 hours. So, our answer to that is, well, if that happened, then we will adjust the price accordingly. So, and say we're going to talk to the cleaner and see if we can verify from them what happened and all that. It's happened, but that's one of the reasons we use Booking Koala too, because we have the system where they do clock in and clock out on the system, and that gives us a electronic record of when they got there, when they left, that we can say, look, we go to great aims to make sure that we're appropriately charging you. Um, Now, we understand there's sometimes some issues. Technology doesn't always work exactly the way you'd like it to.
Right.
So we found in some cases they could clock in before they actually got there, or leave and then leave and clock out a half hour later or something like that. It's possible to do that. And there's some ways I think the system has improved over time where you can now use the GPS feature to see where they were when they clocked in and where they clocked out. Were they actually at the house or not? If we ever have a cleaner who looks like they're trying to fudge the time a little bit, they want to get paid for 3 hours when we work for 2.5. We're going to let them know that we go through aims because it's our obligation to make sure that we're being fair to the customer. If we're charging for time, we need to give them the time. Um, and that if we think that they're not being honest, if they're not being honest with that, how do I trust them to be honest with anything else? You know, people who will cheat every time whenever they can, whether
Right.
taking money or cheating with time. That's who they are.
And in your case, that's one and the same. It's
Yeah, yeah,
cheating the customer out of the time and out of their money and putting that money straight into their pocket.
that's right. So we let them know that we do everything we can do technologically and otherwise um, to make sure that we're charging appropriately and to make sure we're paying them appropriately too. We let them know that if we ever, because we're human, we can make a mistake on their payment. If we ever do, let us know and we will correct it if we're wrong. tell I say, the bigger your paycheck is, the happier I am because the more you make, the more I make, right? So
Right.
don't call. I don't care how much money you make. The more you make, the better for everybody. So we have no problem. We're not, and we don't make money by cheating you a little bit here and there. That we actually make money by making sure you make as much as possible. Because that
You start cheating them out of their money, they're going to be upset, they're going to leave, and now more headache for you to rehire somebody.
right, or the more they make, the more they're going to be happy with their paycheck. The more they want to work next week and continue to work. So I
I
like to,
don't think I've yet to meet a person who makes a lot of money and is upset by that because
or think they should
they're
put some of it back, right? Yeah,
right. Now their issue is I don't know if I have the time to spend it. That might be their only issue.
that may be, and that's always a problem, huh? We always have not enough time in our life to do all the things we want to do because some of the times we have to do things that we have to do.
Right.
That's just the way it is. But
What if with we've been talking with technology and the system, and there are ways that you're utilizing it, but there are still some ways that you've mentioned that you're sending out texts manually. So how big of a role does technology play for you and your business?
well, uh, hopefully a lot, and I think we try to use it more as we can. You have a functionality in Booking Koala that you can, I don't know even what you call it, but there's like a hiring module that you can put new candidates through a workflow and what a campaign or whatever you call it from the point you first get an application from them and the initial interview and all the stages of documentation and background check and all the things you do until they start working. So you now have a way within the system to manage that process. And we've never used that until just recently. And now my wife's starting to, because she said, well, this is here. Why don't we use it? I said, I guess I don't know because we don't. But so she's now started to figure out all the functionality of that and how we can use that to our advantage so that we are more efficient. We don't forget to do something. We make sure everything that needs to be done is done in the right way and all that. So I think sometimes you don't use everything you can use because you're not familiar with all the potential. And Booking Koala has been very good about adding, enhancing their system and making things better. And they look for customer requests for features and things that maybe it doesn't have or things they'd like to see it do different. Uh, I think what some businesses don't realize that they can't do everything the way everybody would like it to be. You know,
It's
if
tough. If we did, then this software would be
you'd have to
so
do
big and vast that
yeah,
you wouldn't be able to get around it.
right, you'd have to do an update every day to because every time someone asks you something, you go in there and make it do that now. And now you got to communicate it to everybody. Well, we changed this, so now if you want to do
And
that,
then your monthly pricing goes up because
all
to
that costs
house that, yeah, that all costs money as well.
right. So when you're developing, so I tell them all the time, if you want a system that will do everything exactly the way you'd like to see it done, the only way you do that is you build your own system. You can be your own computer programmer and you could build a program and that way it'll always be exactly what you want. But right now you're going to use a system that's used by hundreds of other users and you're trying to accommodate what they need too. And I think that the good news is because it has a lot of flexibility and configuration, the way you run your business today may not be the way you run it next month. You may decide to change things, pricing, um, the way you schedule things, anything, and being able to change those to fit your business model is important because it gives you the flexibility to run your business the way you think is the best way. And so far, I see the only challenge with Booking Koala is sometimes the users don't take the time to learn it. So it
And
can
that's
do things.
that's a big thing that you are a big help in the group, in the Facebook community group, because there's constantly new people joining every day, and they might not necessarily be starting their business, but they're looking to start one in the future. So
Right.
they're starting to ask questions, and like we said earlier, maybe not worded the best way, but they're at least engaging in it and
Yeah,
trying to.
yeah, and over the years, I've always been very willing to, if I think someone is sincere and honest, and they have some questions, and they're willing to put in some time too. I've sat on the phone sometimes for hours talking to a new business person and trying to help them. How do you do this? How do you do that? What should I do? And I don't mind. I enjoy doing that. And my wife always says, "Well, you should charge for that. You should be have a consulting fee or something." And probably you could do that. I know people who do, um, but I just enjoy doing it. Sometimes it's pleasurable for me, um, to help somebody and to take some of the knowledge I've gained over years and share that with somebody, as long as they will make good use of it.
As
Sometimes,
long as they're a student and open to learning, the money, like you said, you enjoy teaching everybody, you enjoy these things that, you've got years and years of experience, and sometimes money is secondary in that the primary goal is to help others succeed and watch these businesses flourish and kind of know yourself that you're part of that reason because you helped that business owner out in those beginning stages.
yeah, that's true. Hey, I told you about the California Business and the DRA Model. There's an association that CCDRA, we're still a member, even though our California business is almost non-existent, but we still pay a membership fee to that group. And I was a board member for several years, and those types of things you do, if you don't get paid to do that, and you put in your own personal time, and you get on calls like these or something, a Zoom call with a lot of people, they can ask questions, all that. You do that as a volunteer for the benefit of everybody, and but sometimes you get enjoyment out. I mean, business can be fun. It actually can be. But it's more fun when you're successful. It's more fun when the things you do produce the results you're trying to produce, you know. And the best part about being in business for yourself is you are your own boss. You can change anything and everything you do, anytime you want to. You don't
You
have to.
can't fire yourself
Well, you
as
could.
much as you want to fire yourself at times if things aren't going right, but you're
Sometimes you
not going to get
deserve it.
fired.
Yeah, but it's hard to fire your wife. Um, but
You can, but it might not end well.
no, actually, I made her. She's the primary stockholder in the company and all that. I guess she can fire me. So
She could fire you if
yeah,
being the type A personality, if you don't like the way she does things, you could be gone.
right, which is probably true. Uh,
So several years of using the software, you've seen the constant updates that we do. What has been one or two of your favorite features that you have used either recently or throughout the last several years?
well, like I say, one of the things that attracted us the most was that ability to do the clock in and clock out and to verify the time on the job. That was critical to us because we pay for time and we charge for time. So the timing issue is not just a time management issue; it's a money issue too. So that was one of the most important features. The other thing I liked was that when I looked to change to Booking Koala, I can't remember where I even heard about it. Other users, obviously, but you had an initial free trial for 3 days or 10 days or whatever the heck it was, and I could see right away that it was going to take time to set it up a little bit. But I knew that because I've done this with other systems before, that the best way to learn it is to do it, and it's pretty. You can set up a basic setup pretty easy, and then some of the details take a little longer, and you'll make a few mistakes along the way, which takes more time to fix the mistakes you made. But I just like it was pretty easy to learn and use, I thought, compared to some other systems. And and I've liked the way Booking Koala has been responsive to requests for changes and enhancements and feature changes. So um, they seem to to want to build a good product and to have a, I mean, let's face it, you're a software company, but you're a service company too. So, and the people that I've dealt with seem to be honestly concerned with making a good product and providing a good service and working with their customers, which is us, uh, to make it work.
Without you guys, we would be nothing. We would be nowhere. So just like with your businesses and your customers, if your providers aren't doing the things they need to enhance your business, you're not going to be anywhere. And that's the same
Right.
with us. If we're not listening to you guys and giving you what you guys want and responding to emails and calls promptly, then we're not going to grow as well.
Right, right. So I think that I've liked the flexibility of booking Koala. You can have multiple locations. You can charge by the hour, by the square foot, uh, by number of rooms, and you can have all kinds of hybrid pricing models. If you want to make it real difficult, I guess you can do that. But it seems to be set up so that you can really configure it the way that you want to run your business. And with the way we run our business, we're able to do it using Booking Koala, and it seems to fit. So it does what we need it to do. The only real challenge we're currently having is that thing I mentioned to you about the SMS messaging with Twilio.
Right.
Our messages still don't go out. So we're doing a manual reminders via text because some customers don't look at their emails and they got used to getting those texts. So we go through that in the day before and 3 days before we're sending these manual text messages reminding them of service. So the problem I have with Twilio is I don't know if it's in progress, if it's going to eventually work, because they seem to say there's a way to look, but it's so cryptic that you can't figure out how. And I'm not the smartest guy in the world, and I'm not the stupidest either, but usually with software that's, you can figure it out.
Right.
But I've tried to submit that registration thing more than one time. I'm pretty sure the last time I actually did it right, in case I didn't do it right before. But they say then you're waiting, and I've heard it could be up to 4 weeks. I don't know if that's true or not true.
We're in contact with them to see how we can streamline everything for
Right.
you guys. We're in a waiting process with them too. They're very big and we're doing our best to make sure that we can get this a lot simpler and smoother for you guys. So that is
Yeah.
something that we are looking into.
Yeah, it's a challenge. The only part that's bad, I think, is that because of the way it is, it's the only SMS messaging system that Booking Quality integrates with. So if you want to send automated SMS messages, you do it through Twilio, I think. There's no plan B.
As of right now, yeah.
Yeah, and Twilio seems to be, and maybe like you said, they're a big company, and to them, if you think you're small, well, I as a customer of Twilio am extremely small, so we're a very small user. Um, and they seem to be, they don't care that it doesn't work. They really don't.
It's tricky when a company who has, like you said, businesses that are on a much smaller scale, they may or may not look at you as something that if they lose you, they might not care. If
Right,
you stay, they still might not care as much.
right.
But when with us, doesn't matter if you're on a free trial, doesn't matter if you're on 27 or if you're on a custom plan. Every single person's input matters, and we care about everyone equally.
Yeah, one thing that's frustrating is Twilio, I'm continuing to get recurring charges when they recharge my account, even though the messages don't go out. Just because they attempt to send it, you still get charged for the uh, usage, even though it's failing.
That's something that they should definitely look into and change, especially if it's not connected properly.
Yeah. Well, their position is this is I guess they're doing this as a part of a government regulation on SMS messages so that there isn't spam. and they don't have a choice. They have to do what they're doing.
Right.
And it's not their fault that it's not working because the registration process wasn't complete within the deadline. And so they, you know, it's not going to work till it's complete. That's it. And they didn't initiate that. The government did. That's what they say, which is
So
true.
one feature that we don't have that you wish we did and why, if you could think of one.
Yeah, give me a second because off the top of my head I can't think of one. Yeah, I'd have to say without giving it some real thought because I really can't think of one. Anything that it should do that it doesn't do. That if it was me and I could flip a switch today, I would just say, yeah, I want it to do that. I can't think of that one thing.
And final question then, what are some words of encouragement to anyone watching this who is on the fence about starting or, you know, pre preparing to start, but gathering as much information as they can before they make the jump? What are those words of encouragement that you would give them?
Well, obviously to me, Booking Koala is a tool that you're going to use. It's primarily built for service businesses. Saw a post today and saying, is this only cleaning companies or is it not? But I understand you got swimming pool cleaning companies, you got window washers, you got pretty much gardeners, I guess. Almost any kind of service company you could adapt to this platform and use it. So it's a great tool and opportunity for someone who wants to start a business and get going and do it to do it and be successful. So I'd say the most important thing is to educate yourself into the business you're doing so that you do everything the right way as much as you can from the beginning. And I think that's one of the challenges I see a lot of times with these newer companies is they truly have put in no time and effort to investigate, to do their own research, to even know what they're doing, even in the most basic ways. So they just think they're going to pay a monthly fee and suddenly they're a millionaire, you know, without doing any work. It will be as successful as people make it because you have to put the time and effort into not just Booking Koala, but all the other pieces that go with running a business. And if you do all those things, I think anybody can be successful. You're at a time in the world where, and maybe that'll change in the future, where it's not so easy to get into things. But right now, if you want to start a cleaning business or a landscape business or whatever it might be, you could do that today and be making money in a very short period of time and grow it as rapidly as you want to. So that all the potential's there, but it takes some effort. It isn't just uh, paying a monthly subscription fee and sitting back and collecting the money. It's not quite that simple, but it's pretty. I think almost anybody can do it. And for the things you're not good at, I think you've got a lot of help online that people will assist you if you show the interest to help yourself.
There's tons of community groups like ours. There's others as well, niche specific, whether it's home cleaning, pool cleaning, whatever you want to do. I mean, there's Google, there's YouTube, all the information is out there. It's just if you're willing to, like you said, put in the time to learn it and research it and go through the motions yourself without automatically relying on others to kind of give you the instant answer.
Yeah, and I think one thing that the users have to do, again, I'm on this Facebook group a lot and I see all the posts and stuff and I respond to a lot of them. But I always say so many times, if you got a technical question about your system, email support@bookingkoala.com because even though someone may give you an answer here, they might also give you the wrong answer. So not everybody who's going to respond to you actually knows what they're talking about. There are some people that are very good, um, and particularly on the business end of it, if it's not really the software situation, but things like insurance or licenses or any of that stuff, you got to be careful who you listen to because if you make the wrong decision because you listen to the wrong person, yeah, and you end up paying the price later.
Absolutely.
So,
Russell, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure
yeah,
speaking with you, getting your side of the story and your success with your business.
Okay, well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. I enjoy talking to you and enjoy my shirt and my hoodie and,
Excellent.
and my coffee mug too.
Excellent. I'll see you inside the Facebook group and continue the great work.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Nice talking to
Take
you.
care.
All right.